Water torture, often referred to as drowning in drops, is a method of inflicting physical and psychological distress through the repetitive application of water. Unlike waterboarding, a more familiar form of water torture that simulates drowning by pouring water over a cloth covering the face, this form consists of having water slowly drip onto an immobile victim's forehead, or an immersion situation where drops create a semblance of slow drowning anxiety. The constant dripping, seemingly benign, can eventually become unbearable, breaking down the person's mental fortitude. This technique is designed to exploit the psychological stresses of anticipation and monotony, often leaving long-lasting psychological scars. Understanding water torture is paramount in discussing both human rights and interrogation techniques. As a significant point within the broader topic of torture, it illustrates how seemingly minor, non-violent actions can become tools of extreme psychological manipulation. These measures challenge our understanding of what constitutes torture and draw attention to the ethical boundaries of interrogation practices in both domestic law enforcement and global conflict scenarios. One historical example is the alleged use of this technique in East Asian cultures, where it was reputed to drive victims to maddening despair. Another example is during the Spanish Inquisition, where various water-based tortures were used to extract confessions. Both instances illustrate the enduring reliance on water torture as a means of control and coercion, highlighting its controversial longevity. There are varied opinions on water torture's effectiveness and ethical standing. Some argue it yields results in extracting vital information compared to traditional torture methods because it's less obviously violent, while others strongly contest its efficacy, citing moral grounds and the potential for false confessions. The psychological impact, like heightened anxiety and long-lasting trauma, often outweighs any tangible benefits gained. Challenges and controversies surrounding water torture abound. Human rights organizations vehemently oppose it, campaigning for its classification as inhumane treatment under the Geneva Conventions. Critics argue that despite being less physically aggressive, its impact is as severe as any form of torture. Furthermore, there is considerable debate around the legal and ethical thresholds defining torture. This point crucially links to a broader discussion on interrogation methodologies and human rights laws. It influences public policy and global agreements on humane treatment, urging continuous scrutiny of interrogation practices worldwide. As societies evolve, revisiting the definitions and thresholds of torture remains vital, ensuring that advances in interrogation methods adhere to humane standards. Thus, understanding the nuances of water torture invites reflection on the moral compass guiding contemporary practices and underscores the enduring debate on the ethics of coercion. Water torture, specifically in the form of drowning in drops, refers to a method of psychological torment where water is repeatedly dripped onto the scalp, forehead, or face of a restrained individual over an extended period. This seemingly innocuous act transforms into a form of mental cruelty as the continuous water drops induce a cumulative psychological strain, leading to feelings of dread, anxiety, and eventually a breaking point for the subjected individual. This form of torture plays on the mind's sensitivity to unpredictability, lack of control, and the constant anticipation of the next drop, which can be unnervingly harrowing. The importance of understanding this method lies in its insights into the power of psychological manipulation using basic resources. Unlike physical torture, which leaves visible scars, psychological methods like this leave deep, albeit invisible, wounds affecting the mental health of individuals. It highlights the intersection between physical endurance and psychological resilience, often shedding light on the resilience or the breaking of the human spirit under duress. Real-world examples include historical references to methods used during interrogations or interrogative torture, where psychological advantages were sought without leaving physical evidence. Similarly, it draws parallels to modern debates on enhanced interrogation techniques used in counter-terrorism operations. In these scenarios, the principle of psychological wear through repeated exposure to an overwhelming stimulus remains relevant. The use of drowning in drops as a metaphor in a broader societal context is notable in its depiction of how minor, repetitive stressors in daily life can gradually lead to significant psychological distress, akin to the more generalized concept of death by 1,000 cuts. Opinions on the implications of water torture are varied. Advocates for banning psychological torture underline the moral and ethical obligations to preserve human dignity and mental health. Critics of such methods also argue that they can produce unreliable information and may lead to long-lasting psychological damage, which is not only inhumane but counterproductive. Challenges to this viewpoint include defenses of such techniques under extreme circumstances for national security reasons, suggesting a lesser evil perspective. Nonetheless, the inherent ethical controversy remains robust. In the broader context of water torture, drowning in drops exemplifies the potency of psychological manipulation, reinforcing discussions on human rights, ethical interrogation practices, and the long-term impact on mental health. It influences ongoing debates about the legitimate bounds of coercive power and the moral responsibilities of those in positions of authority, shaping our understanding of humane treatment worldwide. Water torture, a practice that invokes torment through liquid means, has a long and sometimes gruesome history. The concept introduced here focuses on understanding the origins and historical development of water torture techniques. At its core, water torture involves inflicting psychological and physical pain through the controlled application of water, often exploiting the human fear of drowning. The historical context of water torture reveals much about its evolution as both a sanctioned method of interrogation and a means of punishment, casting light on society's occasionally brutal inclination towards control and domination. Understanding the historical background of water torture techniques is crucial, as it showcases humanity's darker extremes and opens discussions about ethics, human rights, and the law's role in moderating violence. Notably, examining these practices allows one to appreciate the profound horrors inflicted in the name of information extraction or compliance, and, in a modern context, underscores the progression towards more humane practices. A prime example of water torture is the medieval form known as Chinese water torture, where water is dripped incessantly on a restrained victim's forehead. This method was psychological, eventually causing mental distress far greater than its physical impact due to the buildup of anxiety and fear. Another notorious technique is waterboarding, often associated with contemporary interrogation practices. Waterboarding simulates drowning, leading the victim to feel as though they are suffocating, which has resulted in vehement international debate. Supporters of aggressive interrogation tactics might argue that such methods can be effective in extracting vital information swiftly. However, human rights advocates consistently condemn water torture for its inhumane nature. Controversies persist, particularly in political arenas where ethical considerations are weighed against national security concerns. Challenges also arise in defining the boundaries between permissible interrogation and outright torture, often muddied by cultural and legal perspectives. This historical context links closely with broader discussions on human rights, legal frameworks, and international cooperation. By understanding the genesis and adaptation of these techniques, one discerns patterns that inform current laws and ethical standards aimed at protecting individuals from cruel treatment. Furthermore, it sheds light on the necessity for vigilance in upholding human dignity amid ongoing debates over security versus individual rights. Thus, by dissecting the evolution of water torture, we illuminate the darker facets of human history, casting long shadows over the ongoing quest for a more just and humane global society. Water torture, drowning in drops, is a term often associated with the psychological form of torture known as Chinese water torture, a method where water is slowly dripped onto a person's forehead for an extended period. This seemingly benign process can become agonizing due to its incessant nature, leading to intense discomfort, psychological stress, and even hallucinations. Its significance lies in illustrating how minor, repetitive actions can accumulate to produce severe consequences, drawing a parallel to how small, persistent stresses or seemingly inconsequential actions in life can lead to overwhelming outcomes. An example highlighting the subtle yet powerful impact of such actions is seen in environmental degradation. Consider the slow but steady increase in carbon emissions. While individual emissions might seem negligible, cumulatively they contribute significantly to climate change, leading to catastrophic effects on ecosystems worldwide. Similarly, in workplace environments, the concept of microaggressions exemplifies this dynamic. Individual microaggressions might appear trivial, but their persistent nature can create a hostile and oppressive environment, profoundly affecting targeted individuals' mental health and productivity. Proponents of hyper-awareness in issues like climate change underscore the importance of understanding how small actions contribute to larger problems, advocating for mindfulness and responsibility in daily activities to mitigate global impact. Similarly, there's an increasing call for cultural sensitivity in workplaces, emphasizing the significance of recognizing and addressing microaggressions to promote inclusivity and mental well-being. There are notable challenges and controversies surrounding the acceptance of such ideas. Some argue that attributing large-scale problems to small individual actions unwarrantedly shifts focus from systemic issues, thereby undermining the importance of structural change and policy interventions. Additionally, skepticism can arise around the perceived severity of outcomes like microaggressions, with detractors dismissing their impact as overstated or oversensitive. Despite differing viewpoints, understanding the power of small, cumulative actions influences how we approach problems across various domains. Whether it's advocating for individual responsibility in the fight against climate change or fostering respectful interactions in diverse environments, recognizing the potential of drowning in drops emphasizes a balanced approach between individual accountability and systemic change. The concept challenges us to consider how seemingly minor acts intertwine with broader issues, compelling collective action towards meaningful change. In essence, it highlights the critical interconnectedness of actions, echoing how the innocuous can culminate in the extraordinary, for better or worse.